Okay, Algebra 1, Chapter 5, Section 5, Absolute Value Inequalities. Just a real quick recap of absolute value. If I have the absolute value of 4, again, by definition, absolute value is distance to 0. Okay, so the absolute value of 4 is 4. But on the other hand, if I had the absolute value of -4, -4 is also 4 spaces away. So in absolute value, we can have a positive and negative value. So when I take an equation, and I'm going to, let's see, I'm going to separate this just a little bit. Okay, it's kind of a two-screen almost. When I take the equation m plus 2, or the absolute value of m plus 2, is greater than 11, I'm going to have to write that in two forms. I'm going to eliminate the absolute value brackets, and my first form is just m plus 2 is less than 11. My second form has to do with this negative value. And so I'm going to take the same equation, m plus 2, but I'm going to change my 11 to -11. Now, mathematically, how do I change an 11 to -11? Well, I multiply it by -1. And our rules from last week tell us that if we multiply both sides by -1, then we are going to have to flip the sign. So I need to flip this to greater than. Okay? So watch that sign flip on your second form. So I would go ahead and just solve this. Subtract 2 from both sides. So this is m is less than 9. And then over here, I would subtract 2 from both sides. And so that's going to be m is greater than -13. And so they would probably want us to graph that on a number line. And so just for the sake of space and time, 9 and 13, I'm going to go by 2's. Okay, and so actually I'm going to go by 5's. 0, 5, 10, 15, -5, -10, -15, -20. So I'm going to have an open circle above 9, which is going to be right about there, with an arrow to the left. And I've got an open circle above -13, which is going to be approximately right there, with an arrow to the right. And so there is our absolute value inequality. So let's step it up just a little bit, and let's take the absolute value of 3x plus 6. The absolute value of 3x plus 6 is greater than or equal to 12. Again, I'm going to have, let me make those absolute value brackets a little bit bigger. Absolute value of 3x plus 6. Again, situation 1, situation 2. So I'm going to go ahead and pause this and go ahead and see if you can work through this one. Go ahead and graph it, and I'll be back to you in a second. Okay, so my first equation should be 3x plus 6 is greater than or equal to 12. And my second equation is going to be 3x plus 6. Remember, we flip the sign on the 12, so that means we flip the inequality sign as well. So let's solve these real quick. These are multi-step. Divide by 3 on both sides. That gives me a final answer of x is greater than or equal to 2. Now let's go over to the other one. I subtract 6 both sides. I didn't do my cancel over there. I've got 3x is less than or equal to negative 18. Divide by 3. X is less than or equal to negative 6. So there's my two numbers. Let's get my number line going. I'm going from 2 to negative 6. So I'm looking on my number line of, let's go by 2's. So let's look at the first one. X is greater than or equal to 2. So that's going to be a closed circle above 2 with an arrow to the right. And less than or equal to negative 6. That is also a closed circle above negative 6, but because it's less than, it's an arrow to the left. Okay, so again, they could be pinched in the middle, or they could go on the outskirts in opposite directions. Okay, so that about covers Chapter 5, Section 5, Absolute Value Inequalities, about 6.5 minutes.